Now, before I begin this review, let me just give some announcements to everybody. So, first of all, I know you all saw on my social media that I am making a James Bond and Jason Bourne movie comparison, and that is still in development. I'm still writing the script, and it's because it's a really complex video I want to make because I want to give a lot of time, dedication, effort, and thought into it. So please stay patient for that. And also this week I will try my best to review Toy Stories 2 and 3 leading up to Toy Story 4 coming out on Friday. I swear, I promise to get those done before Friday for Toy Story 4. So just bear with me that I sometimes have something going on with myself. Nothing horrible. It's just, you know, I have a job. I'm really busy. I am also sometimes doing some work. So yeah, that's just a little update for y'all, and let's get on to the review right now. Barry Lyndon is a 1975 period drama directed by Stanley Kubrick, and it stars Ryan O'Neal as the title character Barry Lyndon. And so this movie is basically about an Irishman named Redmond Barry. He is someone who lives in Ireland in the 18th century, and the movie begins in the 1750s where he is portrayed as a dueler. You know, he's very good at dueling, and he has a family that lives with him. And then later throughout life, he goes through the life that what people went through in the 18th century of Europe. So he joins the British military, he fights in some battles, he meets the Duchess of Lyndon, or Lady Lyndon, and that's just about it. And it also talks about his evolution of life and how he grows up during that time period. And there you got yourself a movie. Now, before I really get into this review, let me just explain who Stanley Kubrick is to people who do not know who Stanley Kubrick is. So, Stanley Kubrick is a director, or he was a director, that basically defined 20th century filmmaking. He had ambitious imaginations, and he was so extraordinary behind the camera. He was someone that was so talented that he was able to direct so many groundbreaking and awesome films like The Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, Spartacus, Full Metal Jacket, Doctor Strangelove, and now Barry Lyndon. And one of the things that makes Stanley Kubrick so extraordinary, talented, and awesome is that each of his films felt so unique. You can tell that each of his films have his own style of wide-shot composition, but his films were so special that none of them felt like they were ever repeated. And when he told a story, it was never the same. And that's how special Stanley Kubrick is, and that is how I have to define him. And of course, based on his films that I know, his last film was Eyes Wide Shut that came out 20 years ago when I was born.
Well, I think the first thing that makes Stanley Kubrick so special was he was a chameleon. He never made the same picture twice. Every single picture is a different genre, a different period, a different story, a different risk.
And even if I do love Stanley Kubrick, I actually have a confession to make about Barry Lyndon. When I saw this movie when I first saw this movie when I was 13, I actually fell asleep. Yeah.
You fell asleep?
Yes, I did, Rachel Green from Friends. Yes, I did fall asleep. And the reason why I can defend myself is that when I saw this movie when I was 13, it was late at night, and basically I really did not understand the movie very well. I was probably really young to understand how art cinema can affect young viewers and how young viewers may not really understand it, so I decided to give it a rewatch as a 19-year-old, and I have to say that I really liked it rewatching it and revisiting it as a young adult, because there is so much to praise from Barry Lyndon, because this movie basically is what filmmaking should be. This movie knows how to tell a story about a character, the rise and fall of your protagonist, and it also knows how to put, you know, set pieces and artwork and how they can, you know, portray and reflect the 17 or the 18th century in general. And since it is a Stanley Kubrick film, there is so much to praise from Barry Lyndon concerning the cinematography, set designs, costume designs, art direction. Almost everything is praiseworthy in this film, except for the pacing, which is why I fell asleep when I was 13. And that is probably, the funny thing is that the thing I'm going to start off with this movie is a flaw. And this is not because, oh, this movie's awful. It's because there is one flaw that I have with Barry Lyndon, and it's probably the pacing, because this is a very slow-paced movie, and this will actually aggravate some viewers who are trying to be film students or who want to make films based off of art cinema, because Barry Lyndon is about 3 hours and 4 minutes long, and it's a very slow-paced movie. It does a very good job of building the character of Barry Lyndon throughout those 3 hours, but some of the slow pace and dragging can really irritate some viewers, and even rewatching it, it did irritate me, but it's one of those movies that does get better when you rewatch it more times, and it gets faster once you know the premise or the pacing of the film. But nevertheless, there is about a billion things to praise from Barry Lyndon, because Barry Lyndon does not disappoint. And Stanley Kubrick's art of this film is just so gorgeous to stare at, because the best thing I would love to praise first about this film, or the two things I would love to praise first about this film, are the cinematography and the costume design, because those are the things that are worthy of your attention, because the cinematography is just a breath of fresh air. There's so many establishing shots of, settlements in Europe, or, the palaces that Barry Lyndon stays. And then you also get to feel as if you're really in that time period. And not so many movies get to have the audience feel that way, but when I watched this film, I actually thought I was in a historical time period at that time in Europe. And, it's very beautiful to look at, and you can tell that it's on location, and you can tell that Kubrick did, he did it all his best. He really wanted to capture the environment of, the outside world. And another reason why the cinematography is so grand is because it's very known for double shot conversations. And double shot is what they use, for conversation scenes. And basically what Kubrick does, is that he makes those double shots last for a very long time, which is why the movie is a bit slow. But it's a way for people to capture, the reactions of the characters and how they feel and stuff.
Has something happened to Nora? She took on so about your going away that she was obliged to console herself with a husband. She is now Mrs. John Quinn.
The sequence opens with a tracking shot that was filmed by one of 3 cameras running simultaneously along an 800-foot track. This shot was particularly difficult because it starts at the end of a 250mm zoom lens.
And you gotta give props to the costume team of this movie. My goodness, the costumes! Even the costumes made you feel as if you're really in that time period. And, the type of clothing that these costume design team had to know about was like clothes that they had to wear during the 18th century in Europe, in England, Ireland, getting the red coats right, getting the blue coats of the Prussian army. I mean, that type of dedication I've seen in costume design is probably one of the best, and even the costumes are even worth praising. Barry Lyndon is also a movie that understands the usage of colors from the rainbow, and that's the thing that always impresses me about Kubrick is, when he uses colors in a film, he really knows how to make them fit and how to portray them as motifs, because, you have red coats for the red coat army of the English, and then you have the blue coats for the Prussian army, and then you also have these type of colors that represent moods in the film, because there is probably like one scene that I really liked, probably near the ending, like almost in the third act of the film, some of the colors just turn gray because it represents the downfall of Barry Lyndon's character, and once the color gray matches his misfortune, everyone else turns gray, and it's just genius the way how Kubrick manipulated those colors, just simple colors. music music is so soothing and calming to listen to since it's from Bach and all the other classical composers of that era. And the cinematography is great. The costume designs are just fantastic. Everything is so wonderful about Barry Lyndon, and that is thanks to Stanley Kubrick. And this is a movie I really do encourage film students or film lovers to watch, because although this film may be a little slow for some people, it's a movie that people should still appreciate about Barry Lyndon, or how they should appreciate filmmaking in general, and how you have an auteur in the past that had so much dedication to his craft work. And when you see his craft work, you're just amazed by this piece of art that he made, and it's a masterpiece, because Barry Lyndon is definitely the true definition of a masterpiece. And based on rating, I would give Barry Lyndon a 10 out of 10, but it's just the pacing just kind of bored me from time to time. And I know the film does benefit from the slow pacing, but it just dragged for some time. So I'm going to have to give Barry Lyndon a 9.5 out of 10. And that's all I have to say about Barry Lyndon. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I had a lot of fun watching this movie despite how slow it was. And I know I'm using slow because Barry Lyndon is a really long movie, but it's not an offense to the film because the film is still very good. It's still worth watching. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope to do those more to do more movie reviews as I promised in the beginning. So thank you again.